Yeah, I gotta bump into Spencer sometime here and find out what's going on with the old Icebreaker podcast, because I need to get my hockey fix on.
Yeah.
I'm sure life is just happening. That's what happens with podcasts. This is episode number 124 of the Show Me Your Mic podcast, where we talk about podcasting. I'm Chris. He's Kyle. If you're watching the video version later or live right now as we record, which we do on our Twitch channel, occasionally twitch.tv/goodstuff_FM. I think that's the one. We're underscores and non-underscores all over the place, just because of what's available. And I was stupid, I think, when I set up our Twitch channel. Maybe there's a way to change that.
Good Stuff must be owned by someone else, or you can only change it once a year or something like that. It's probably available. We just need to change it.
Yeah, I think I was thinking, no, we want the FM on there because that'll make people realize that we're an important podcast network or something. But really, it's just annoying to say it out loud. Mm-hmm. I broke that. That's like my number one rule when coming up with names for stuff is say it out loud before you register the domain. And then, did that with our Twitch account and my Show Me Your Mic. SMYM_FM is the Show Me Your Mic Twitter handle, which is awful. You have to say every single syllable of that, every character. There's no way to have it just roll off the tongue. Stupid.
That's true. But how well the show me your and then blank works is just pretty good. I once set up that parody account because Jordan Cooper would just scream into the Twitter void at you with show me whatever.
Any tweet I had, he would reply with,
Yep. I was trying to put every word in there, and it took. There are probably great, easy ways to do this if you know how to code, to create a bot or whatever. Just throw a whole dictionary in there and have it spit out some stuff. But I did it from a Excel document or something ridiculous, and scheduled up a bunch of tweets. It would do 5 a day, and then it ran out of words, and I said, "Okay, I think I'm done. This is good," and so I deleted it.
I didn't know you went that hardcore with it. You bought it.
I did. I don't think it's available. I'll search for it now, but I don't think it's available anymore. Show me every word. Nope, doesn't exist. Yeah.
All right. So, speaking of good stuff, that's the podcast network that we run together. I had a thought in the shower about good stuff, which it was safe for work thoughts, nothing bad.
Yeah.
Just the idea. Although now that I'm saying it out loud, again, this is something where you should say it out loud maybe before you say it out loud on a podcast that everybody's going to listen to later and wonder what you're talking about.
On a live stream, on a public live stream.
Yeah, where you have 5 pictures of Kyle surrounding me as I talk. Anyways, it seems like there's a lot of folks who are, and this is true of a lot of things on the web too, where they're like the solo, I'm just going to do it myself. It's easy. Because the internet enables this, you can do it all yourself. But for some reason, you and I, and this will all make sense when we loop back around to what we're actually going to talk about first on this show. But you and I found each other through your podcast and the stuff I was doing and wanted to actually work together. Whereas it seems like a lot of people, my assumption is that a lot of people want to pair up and group up and have a fun club of people to work with on stuff that they're doing in the world. But what I found more and more is especially even if we focus on podcasting, is that they're good with just their web thing, their one podcast, their one domain or whatever for their podcast, and that's where it's going to live. And there's marketing reasons to do that and all that kind of stuff. But whereas maybe it's just because of my age or the way I found podcasting was through podcast networks. And it was kind of I love that idea of going to 5by5.tv or twit.tv or whatever the network was, and seeing all these people and picturing. I think it's kind of you picture your teachers as caricatures of themselves. They're not really humans. They're these cartoony characters that don't actually have normal lives outside of school. And similarly for all these podcasters, I just picture them all hanging out. This is before Slack too. So digitally hanging out together and chatting about podcasting and I don't know what, shooting each other double guns at every time they record an episode or something. I don't know what it was.
Right. You'll come onto mine. Yeah, I'll go onto yours.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, community, whatever. But then more and more as, we set up good stuff and then you're talking with folks and it's not everybody's objective to necessarily a podcast network definitely doesn't have the luster that it used to, I guess. And because it is so easy to set up your own show these days, which is great. But yeah, I don't know. I guess this is all a roundabout way of responding to your tweet announcing sort of like morning show stuff that we want to talk about, that in appreciation, I guess, of stumbling into the fun relationship we've had to do good stuff. So that's my rambling shower thought.
In order to really kind of absorb that properly, I probably should get in the shower myself and figure things out. Which is just right. It's right over here. I don't think the mic will reach, but
probably not
I'll
waterproof.
do my best.
Yeah,
probably not waterproof. Yeah. It could use a good shower though. This is 4 years of just grime and coffee breath and all that kind of stuff.
Speaking of Jordan Cooper, you mentioned that. That's this pop filter that I bought off him.
That's right.
And so there's Jordan Cooper germs on here, I'm sure. Although my wife saw it and she cleaned it right away.
They will be worth something someday.
Yeah.
If right now they aren't worth more than just good vibes, good feelings.
Yeah.
I do think of this same sort of thing that you're talking about, where the podcast world seems to me like it's easy peasy. You just say like, hey, you want to do a thing, and the people who have podcasted before will just jump on it. I don't know how to necessarily broach the subject as in a public forum and be like, hey, I'm kind of up for whatever. Anybody else want to do whatever? Anybody who, doesn't really have a voice in the podcasting world want to do whatever? Because that's kind of that is my feeling right now. It's like, I'm working full time. I am doing the like Untapped podcast part of the time. And then the rest is just sort of like, well, okay, we'll do morning show once a month, and we'll do Show Me Your Mic a couple times a month, maybe. And then what else? I'm listening to podcasts the rest of the time, but I enjoy the creation part of that way more than I do the listening part. There are shows that I'll come back to over and over, and that'll get bumped up super quick in my queue on Pocket Casts when it's working. But I do want to kind of like just, I don't know, try new things, and the solo thing does not entice me. It is the easiest because you're the only one holding yourself back at that point. But
which that for me is the biggest holdback if I have other people involved.
Same with me. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's like I'm just afraid of not being interesting by myself. That's not funny. Nobody likes to listen to it. It is fun and funny to do podcasts with other people, but me alone by myself, I'm not entertained. So why would anybody else be?
Right.
That's kind of that's how I feel about it right now. I understand that doing it solo would be no barrier to entry. I just do it. But also, that's just noise. Like, unless I have some sort of point of view that it's worth hearing, and I don't because I'm a white cis male in technology, nobody cares. That's kind of it. So I don't really know. Like you, I don't really know where to go from here. And all of that is just to say, like, yeah, morning show. I guess we're gonna stop doing it for a little while. Which was probably a big surprise to the folks who are listening, but also not that big a surprise because we've been doing maybe one episode a month or so. It hasn't been really that often,
right?
So,
because you had well, it's kind of funny that sort of chain of events there too, where we got a tweet from somebody who's like, "Hey, has the morning show?" Like, because I had tweeted something about somebody pinged me that our podcasts weren't showing up in Google Podcasts. So I tweeted out saying, hey, by the way, if you're on Google Podcasts, our shows might not be showing up. We're getting it fixed, which they did. Google Podcasts, by the way, great. Like I filled out a form for like 10, whatever, 8 or whatever shows we have on there listing.
Yeah.
And the feeds all just need to be updated. And I was like, assuming in a month I might hear back from them saying, oops, sorry, this is the form you need to fill out or whatever. But like literally the next day.
Go to this website, you can do it yourself.
Yeah. Literally the next day was like, fixed. Let us know if we can help you. Like, which is in such stark contrast to like Apple Podcasts, where it's like they send you emails back and stuff, and they are communicative, but it's very much like you're on your own. You fix the stuff, and here's what we need from you to like make sure your podcast is working. Which I understand at the scale they're at, like in Google Podcasts, hopefully is hungry and a little anxious for podcasters to list on there. But yeah, I was shocked. So anyways, all that to say, if you're on Google Podcasts, hopefully you're hearing this show now. So
yeah,
I don't know how many are out there, but
yeah, that's a bit. It's kind of weird because like obviously the iTunes format is the one that just became the standard and gets respected pretty much everywhere. It's like a mix between RSS and XML and whatever, all the gobbledygook. It's just kind of strange that it works some places but doesn't work other places. Redirects work sometimes. It still seems like a magic thing to me. I don't understand how we redirected all of our feeds. If you asked me to do it again tomorrow, Chris, I don't know if I could.
No.
It's still very, very confusing to me. But now we kind of talked about this a couple episodes ago, but we're quote unquote in ownership of all of those feeds and stuff now. So the intent is that those won't ever change unless the name of the show changes or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a better spot. But it's wild that Google Podcasts would be like, sure, whatever, I'll help you out. Like, I'll respond to your email. Even is wild to me. We don't pay anything. It's not like it's some sort of acceptance process like it is on Spotify or whatever. But it's just kind of like, yeah, I'll help out.
Yeah.
Take what we can get, I guess, here in the Google Podcasts.
So with Morning Show, I guess, just what's like the episode, it's episode 403 holiday special. I've listened to part of it, and I was like, you and I had even talked, and we were like, you're like, oh yeah, we want to get back onto it. Life is obviously busy, but we're trying to, we know it's not going to happen for a while. And so the podcast episode actually is fairly like, this is the end. Cue Jim Morrison.
A little bit. A little bit. So here's the whole reason why that is. My brother is having a child with his wife. And
congratulations, Kenny.
Yes. And that is supposed to happen like next week. And so coming up here, he works a full-time job, morning show, obviously, and Goodstuff is not our full-time thing.
What?
And the amount of time that he's going to be able to spend doing sort of like for fun stuff is going to be in the wee hours of probably the 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. time zone. And that's about it. And the rest of the time will be spent sleeping, at least for the foreseeable future. And so even though I guess it does sound kind of doom and gloom, there is also kind of part of it where we're like, hey, we did this for 400 episodes. You want to do something else? Like we have fun doing it, but also the times that we actually hear back from folks, pretty few and far between, to be honest. And for the numbers that at one point we got from Pocket Casts, going 3,000, 5,000 downloads per episode at sort of our peak, that never resulted in like a critical mass of people sending us feedback or sending us any sort of like, hey, love what you're doing, love the show. It falls into the background of people's lives, which I like. I think that's great because that's how I treat podcasting. I never reach out to podcast hosts other than you, which I feel like I have an in already, right. So it doesn't feel that weird. But I'm not going to just send in like, hey, I'm listening, or here's a question that I had. I won't do that, even though myself, I'm a podcaster and I expect that of other people. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but it's just kind of weird. And so at the format of morning show and the wild stuff that we do on there, I think it could use either a refresh or I don't know, like let's do something different. Let's try something different. It's sort of been the same formula for the last 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And it's evolved in certain ways, and we have fun every episode with doing different stuff, but I think it's time to try and figure something else out. So I didn't say like, hey, this is the very last one for sure, it's never coming back and I'm deleting the back catalog or anything. It's just sort of like, yeah, I'm gonna leave this here. You guys can listen to it if you'd like. I'm not expecting anything of Kenny or and folks shouldn't expect anything from us in the interim. maybe a new episode will show up in your feed one day. So I guess don't unsubscribe, but just I guess follow along on Twitter or follow along wherever, and you'll eventually hear about it if we do a random episode here and there. I've always wanted to, just sort of as an aside, I've always wanted to do that show live, and it never came to be. We never sort of got, again, like I said, the critical mass of enough folks talking about it to warrant a hey, we're going to do the show live. We can sell 100 tickets or whatever. Never.
Like live in person live.
Like in person.
Not just like streaming live or whatever, but right.
See, that's the other thing, Chris. Like on Twitch, I'm sure it is the case at the moment. I don't know who's tuning in right now, but
one.
We would do the show. One, great. We would do the show in the morning. That's what it would be. It'd be one. And then we would put the show out and 600 people would download it, 700 people. It's like, well, okay, what is the better thing to do here? Where should we be spending our time? Not on video equipment, not on setting up lights, and not on live streaming, because the place where the listeners is the podcast feed. But even that, like, we get more interaction on the live stream. So it's really interesting, and I feel like the rule. I don't mean to like take this like down, make the end of my explanation here a downer, but you take the rule of you just keep doing it and eventually you'll become successful is BS. I don't buy that at all. And yes, indeed, the consistency of the show faltered quite a bit here towards the end, but I still don't think that just because you do it for long enough means that you're going to become successful at it.
Yeah, you can definitely look at, like, I'm just scrolling through the episode breakdown of on Transistor on our dashboard or whatever, and like through 2017 into 2018, even like consistently, if not weekly, like bi-week or twice a week or whatever, even, and episodes coming out pretty consistently. And so, and it is like right now, like the show is getting 500 to 700 downloads per episode. Like it's not insignificant. It's not like obviously, the 15,000 downloads per episode you need to like get some sort of sponsorship money. And I feel like that's where like whatever the critical mass is of like a show, like it was kind of, I know in early days you're kind of modeled a little bit after what's that Frog Pants Scott Johnson morning stream, kind of, yeah, like, and
honestly it was like part morning stream, part what was that other one called, the one on 5x5 Frequency with Maddie and Dan, very much like in that vein, and also kind of like just your morning zoo talk radio thing. We were doing it every day, and that's kind of, I mean, the amount of effort that it took to do that and show up every day and put that out was never counterbalanced by enough sponsorships or interest or, the warm fuzzies that you get from people saying like, hey, I'm listening. Hi, I'm over here.
And that's where it's
like put the numbers out there too. Since we moved over to Transistor, we've had almost 18,000 downloads of the show.
Right.
That's across all of the episodes on Morning Show. So 530 subscribers across all the shows we put out. It's about 17,000 downloads, 18,000 downloads. It's quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of earballs that we would be in had we been, putting sponsorships on it, or had we been, I don't know, asking for feedback or whatever. There's a whole lot of things that I probably feel like, hey, we could have done better throughout the whole run of the show, but
and it's really cool.
The other thing is like it's just fun to do sometimes.
I was gonna say that it's really cool. Like I know podcasters out there are, if they're anything like us, that you say, I don't really look at the stats, doesn't matter, I'm having fun. But then your other half of your brain is like, I'm looking at the stats and feeling depressed. And so it, because you're not reaching whatever number it is, whether it's, and it'll never be enough, right? Like I'm sure whoever Frog Pants guys or 5x5 or whoever is like, oh shoot, we only have 50,000 downloads where we used to have 70, and what's going on or whatever. But like looking at the worldwide listener location thing, which on Transistor they have, and other podcast hosts have this too in analytics. But like in India, for example, there's been 140 downloads of the morning show, and like Russia 38, Sweden 124, Australia was like 378. Like obviously the most of it is the United States is by far outweighing everywhere else. But when you think of the fact that your voice, you and Kenny, and then all the dumb soundboard stuff went around the world. Literally, it's impressive, and that's what I think. If we can spin anything of the like sort of like you're saying, sort of doom and gloom side of it, is also just like the fun and impressiveness of what can happen with the podcast. And for all we know, like, obviously lots of folks, maybe if they're not English speaking and listening to the show, don't feel like they can, send in feedback or whatever. Who knows the reasons, but
right.
But yeah, like obviously it still isn't that, especially I feel like both you and I, there's something about the live stream aspect of it, or doing the thing live, that is also like a validation thing. And so even when I do the YouTube podcast, like if it's more than 2 people that show up and watch and are willing to comment, somehow there's like a check in my brain that is like, okay, this is actually worthwhile in whatever metric, even though I'm just having fun doing it, even if nobody shows up, is what I tell myself.
I think there's also like a validation of the live thing, in that this is the hardest way to do a podcast. Doing the live show straight to tape, you just export it. There's no editing. I'm sure there are people who have said this, and I see this on Twitter all the time. Like, edit your podcast. You have to edit your podcast because you don't want to waste people's time. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I think you and I got into podcasting for that exact reason. It's unedited. It is the person talking into the microphone. You get to hear their thoughts. You get to hear them stumble. You get to hear sort of like the very much how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
While at the same time, like you're not getting this super produced, hyper edited version of what they want you to hear. And there's always room, obviously, for the super produced NPR style Vox whatever stuff. But then at the same time, there's like shows that could be done live that aren't done live, and then they cut stuff out of those anyway. And I feel like there's a craft to just going live to tape and being able to, like I'm doing right now, just saying words. It's really strange to go from episode 1 or from the older podcast that I did way back when to now, where I'm just like, yeah, I'll be on a podcast, whatever. Oh, we'll just talk. It's like improv, right? It is very much just kind of bouncing off each other and talking about, stuff and listening actively, and then trying to put words out there and fill the space and try not to say and ah and like all the time.
Yeah, that's my vocal tick is yeah. I agree, and then add something. Pocket Cast, you mentioned, is Bort. The new update I'm on iOS, you're on Android in your mobile world.
Boy, we may need to resurrect high contrast, because I'm jumping over to the iOS.
Oh, are you?
Probably.
So Kyle and I had a show called High Contrast where it wasn't like intentionally like polarizing views, but just like, here's how this particular tech angle thing works in my world. How does it work in yours? And compare notes.
Yeah.
But so you're going back to.
I'm looking at iOS. It is enticing for me, mainly because my entire family is on iOS.
Yeah, that's a big pressure. Just
it
have
really
blue bubbles.
Plus, I was laughing for about an hour a couple days ago while we recorded the last morning show at the Memoji, like iPhone 10 Memoji stuff. Pretty funny. The tongue tracking technology is totally worth the upgrade for sure.
Yeah, that's my sister got the XR or whatever, the new lighter version or whatever it is, and then we just did 8s here in my house, but and we were kind of like, oh, that would be fun. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where you use it and it's fun, but you don't need it, but it's fun.
VR. It is totally like VR. Like, you go to your friend's house, you try it out, and you're like, that's a cool Virtual Boy. I don't want one.
Yeah,
but thanks.
It's like having a truck. It's like you want one of your friends to have a truck or a pool or a dog or whatever, but you don't necessarily want to have to take care of the truck or the pool or the dog every day.
You just equated a truck, a pool, and a dog.
It works. Just ruminate on that one for a while.
I don't need that much responsibility. Trying to feed this truck every day and fill up the dog. I'm tired of it.
It'll make sense eventually. Just sit on that for a while. Oh, yes.
Well, in Canada, that would freeze over, right? Obviously, you can't have a pool. You just can't. You'd have to drain it. You'd have to...
Oh, people have pools. Yeah, but they drain it.
Yeah. Ugh.
I know
And then it just fills
it's
with what, water, and then that just
snow.
sounds like a bad situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
You cover it,
Yeah. I don't know.
and then
Yeah.
like a raccoon goes inside there and crawls in between the thing and can't get out, and then you open it up in the summer because it's cooking and you smell something. And you're like, oh. Do you guys have raccoons up there? Is that
Yes. Yeah. We have
a
raccoons.
trash panda? Okay.
Yeah. On that note, you know what? We were talking about sponsors. So this episode, last episode, this episode, and two more have been sponsored by Gumroad, and I'll touch on what they've got for folks who are podcasters in a second. But just briefly, in terms of for the purposes of podcasters listening to this show, this is the one of the things that keeps me on Twitter is the randomness of things that can happen where I would never have this opportunity probably. Gumroad. The CEO of Gumroad, I think it was, but maybe it was from their actual Gumroad account, tweeted out saying, "Hey, we're looking to get into podcast sponsorship, trying it out, seeing if it's worthwhile, etc. And what kind of shows should we go after?" And particularly, they were looking for not the big, high-end shows, both I'm sure for their cost, but also their Gumroad is a service that appeals to indie creative types, small shops. They're not necessarily like Walmart isn't using Gumroad to sell stuff or whatever, but somebody who's like below a WooCommerce whole big, site in WordPress or whatever, but has whatever, I'm sure they can do tons, but like 50 or whatever products that you want to sell, digital stuff. And so they're looking into reaching that kind of market. So obviously they don't necessarily want to be on like Serial or whatever. They want to appeal to the creators and then also giving back to the creative community as well, which is kind of cool. So excuse me. At any rate, they tweeted this, and so I was like, well, I'll just reply. Like, we have a podcast network and shows, and I also am a client, or I have clients who have podcasts and are in that sort of like sub big league podcast world. Maybe I can connect some dots here, and so then they replied right away, DM me, and so that's why now Gumroad is sponsoring 4 episodes of Show Me Your Mic, and then also doing a couple episodes over on the Shop Talk show, and like. Obviously for a substantial discount from what they're paying at Shop Talk Show versus what they're paying for Show Me Your Mic. You're all lovely listeners and viewers and stuff, but there's just less of you, so I can't charge as much. That's just how it works. But and I think for them it's kind of fun because they get to. It's not costing them a lot in terms of their marketing budget for sure, and they get to sort of see what the results are of like if we sponsor this one show for $100 and this other show for $1,000, they each obviously have a different audience size. But what's the reality in terms of click-throughs and signups and all that kind of stuff? So,
yeah, I think that's the most important part. Like, if you haven't been in the podcasting advertising world before, it very much depends on the type of show. It very much depends on the type of ad. Doing pre-roll, post-roll, read by the host, not read by the host, baked into the very last, few seconds of the podcast. What is most effective? And I'd be curious to like almost hear what else they're doing on other podcasts and see how that goes. These birds are so loud. Why are they so loud?
All right, you go deal with the birds. I'm going to talk a little bit about Gumroad because I actually have used Gumroad in the past. I don't have products to sell right now, so I would actually recommend it as a service even before they were sponsoring or anything like that. But the big thing that they do, if you're not familiar with Gumroad at all, is if you have a PDF, an MP3, a video, a course, maybe a slideshows, any sort of digital thing that you want to sell, and you don't want to go through all the work of setting up a big Shopify account, or don't want to set up WordPress. You just want a site that you can direct people to with a simple link to sell this thing, a course, etc. That's what I did. I had a Snapchat course, I think is one of the main ones I did, where I put it on Gumroad and sold it through there. And it was extremely validating to get a few people buying it through there. It wasn't a very, I didn't know how to market it. I didn't know how to do all that stuff, but just being able to, without a whole lot of work, set up a store, an e-commerce store basically for the digital stuff that I was making was extremely validating and fun just to get those first few payments through. People were using it, giving me feedback on it, that kind of stuff. And basically what they've done is they can allow folks, digital content creators like podcasters, musicians, writers, teachers, etc., to sell their stuff online. And so their bullet points they sent me was like they've enabled over 168, I'm just reading the zeros here, 168 million has been earned by creators using the platform, used to pay for everything from coffee to a kid's college fund. And that's the awesome part of it, is like you can use it for a one-off thing, or you can use it like my brother-in-law does, where he creates, I don't know if you've ever seen, I've probably sent you videos of his stuff, but he does videos on YouTube that are obviously free to watch on YouTube of how to make cosplay costumes, sort of steampunk stuff out of crafty materials, foam and things like that. But then the way he makes his living is selling the patterns, a PDF basically, but it's a pattern he designs, and then people can buy it at the end of his videos, a little link, and that's all powered by Gumroad. So he puts all the PDFs up on Gumroad. They allow people to pay with PayPal or a credit card, and then that's basically like he's feeding his family off of Gumroad, which is just kind of crazy when you really think about supporting yourself just through a website, basically like that. And so if you're curious at all about Gumroad, you can obviously go to gumroad.com. Gumroad.com/showmeyourmic is where you can visit if you want to just give them a little notice that you came from this show, heard about it from this show. Check it out. Sign up there if you're at all interested. The link is on the screen as well on Twitch and on the video. And we'd really appreciate it if you check them out and check them out if you're curious at all. For like, I think there's interesting application here for podcasters too. I know with the Shop Talk Show we were talking about it behind the scenes, sort of like we could package up, a bunch of like the funny, goofy sound clips like I've captured from the show over the last few years that I've been editing it, and just sell it as like a thing that people could buy for $1 or $2 and use as ringtones or whatever. And there's a million and different ways you could, I think, integrate that into like a podcasting sort of sale of digital stuff, because it is obviously MP3s that we're sending out, whether it's a course or whether it's just bonus material that you want to do with something like Gumroad. So thanks to Gumroad, gumroad.com/showmeyourmic, and let me know what you think. You can tweet at me, iChris, on Twitter if you have questions about Gumroad. I'm happy to answer them, as well as a service I recommend to clients and friends and family, obviously. I think he should get me.
Not to extend this ad too much further. I've used them quite a bit as a someone who has put out software before. I used to sell these 3D models through them. Yeah. What's great too as a creator is that they'll like package it up and send you whatever the form is in the States, like the W-9 or whatever, for like, hey, this is how much money you made this year.
Right.
Put it on your taxes. Like, it's pretty cool. That you can just sort of put something out on the internet using this tool and have sort of like a passive income. It was pre good stuff, sponsorship money that we were bringing in. And it was very much like just, hey, we can go eat dinner now because someone bought this thing that I put out for $5. A couple of folks in the Good Stuff Discord channel have put stickers on there, so you could do like actual physical goods and then capture people's addresses and send out stickers. So it's not just software.
Right.
Our very own Jory Raphael, who did some of the artwork for the first set of
the Show Me Your Mic one was him.
Yeah, the Show Me Your Mic one. The icons on the Show Me Your Mic album artwork are part of his Symbolicons icon bundle, which are sold on Gumroad. So it all comes full circle.
Yeah.
Plus, as someone who is like on the, not the creator side, someone who is on just like I buy stuff on Gumroad. I have a whole page here of like, I have a sketch plugin and a thinking face emoji sticker. And it's just a whole list of like, oh, if I want to go download it again, this is my list. This is where like all the indie software that I bought lives.
Yeah, which is really cool. Yeah, it's like obviously you can, as a purchaser, you can set up your own account. You have to, I think, and then that keeps track of all the stuff you bought. So you can't remember like I know I bought like some icons somewhere and I can't remember, and so you just log into your Gumroad account and they're there. And I think they actually, this is going above a little bit beyond outside my wheelhouse, but I'm pretty sure they even add, like if you're looking for doing affiliate stuff, I think they added some sort of system for that. If you're like your design stuff that you're selling, you could offer like a bit of an affiliate program through it. So anyways, it's a pretty neat, I think what I was saying on the previous episode, I think is just like the world of hurt that as a web developer and person who helped people build websites, the pain I felt when someone said to me, we just want to build can you just add on an e-commerce? We hear e-commerce is really big. Can you just add that on to our website and then we'll take care of it? And it's like, you have no idea how much garbage you have to deal with just to like set up a air quotes quick little e-commerce site. And then I remember Gumroad coming along like in the first iteration of it even was just like, okay, well this is and they had like awesome WordPress embeds and overlays and stuff. So, anyways, this is turning from a sponsor spot into just a here's how you sell stuff online. But that's
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Gumroad decided to get into the podcasting space just to like talk about this kind of stuff and eventually feature creators that are on their platform selling stuff.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a no-brainer to do like, interview your creator. That's what I think any website, like I've talked with CodePen about that, their podcast, like a way of highlighting the folks who use your service is a great vehicle or a great thing to use a podcast for. If you're stuck for anything else. Yeah.
HVAC technician training courses, everything.
That's my buddy who does HVAC whatever stuff. Anyways.
Flamenco guitar techniques. I feel like for these future ads, Chris, you have to dig through here and find some stuff that either no one's bought before or
highlight
just some really great like. You could even find, blank, the comic book with machines and a sticker, or real lifelike mouth 3D renderings. Just this is good. This is really good.
So I've lost Kyle to Gumroad now to hunting through the Gumroad listing directory. So part 2 of the show, we've gone long, I think, on the first half, as often happens with a podcast like this, where you just get talking. But part 2 is I wanted to pick your brain a bit before I send out an email, because I've got the Castaways Club. So last time I think we talked, it was still like a brainstorming idea of like a podcast community. This actually nicely circles back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show about like having community of podcasters. But last time we talked, I was stuck on what to name this thing and registering a domain and all that kind of stuff. And so through the community feedback from the folks on the mailing list already, we decided on Castaways is the name of the community, and the domain name is castaways.club.
Got in touch and decided to donate Wilson to the cause, and so now we're here.
Well, and also, actually, Sue and I were watching, my wife and I were watching Survivor the other day, and realized on the show they call the contestants castaways as well. So there's fallback if things go bad with the podcast community.
To battle each other? Are you kidding?
Exactly.
Come on, Chris. We're supposed to work together, not battle each other.
Voting each other off the podcast island. Actually, I think that's part of the challenge. Yeah. So what I'm thinking, what I wanted to actually, this ties in a little bit with Gumroad even too, is because that certainly could be an option. But what I hope to do with it, besides just being like a place where you can chat and say, hey, this is my podcast, what do you think? And this is what I'm thinking of doing, and what do you think? And sort of banter back and forth, and maybe find other folks who are interested in podcasting together and building community that way. But also including things like maybe a weekly or monthly challenges. I don't want it to be like onerous extra work for people, but like, let's say there's a music bed from some song or whatever, or loop or whatever from somewhere, that just like, hey, come up with a 2-minute. Your task this month is to just like record a 2-minute show or episode or whatever thing, MP3 basically, using this music bed just to like challenge yourself to be creative around this thing, or maybe a topic, or recording an episode on reacting to the news of the day or whatever, and trying to be political in one thing or whatever. It just kind of like the same way that like a workout, a trainer would give you different tasks to work out different muscles. So similarly, we want to work out your podcasting muscles, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that part's good, I think, and we'll figure out how to do all that exactly. But the tech behind it now, and it's particularly the money thing, we've kind of like settled on. When I say we, like me and the folks who have been sort of are on the email list and chatting back and forth a bit, settle on the idea that yes, it's going to cost some money just to have a bit of skin in the game, and not be, you can't just pop in and then leave. We want it to be something. So whether it's $3 a month, $5 a month, I don't know, something just to cover costs and make it a bit harder to just get into. But I've gone back and forth on, and I'm going to write an email hopefully later today or next week to the community on whether we're to use something like what service and how to do that, how to take money and how to process people into this thing. Because you could do, so the main 2 ways I've been thinking of and would be using Patreon, which we use here at Good Stuff, and I have a personal account. It's easy to use. Patreon.com/goodstuff is our Good Stuff Patreon account, which you can support us there if you like. That's where after show stuff we put on there, and you're just supporting what we do here at Good Stuff and paying for servers and things like that. But or using something actually like Memberful, which actually Patreon owns now. when I originally started doing this, it was separate. So, but Memberful is more like a way to not have to set up like an account. If you want to support someone on Patreon, you set up a Patreon account and then you pledge, $5 a month or whatever, and you can stop at any time. But it's all through Patreon, the service. Whereas Memberful is more like you want to, I guess, kind of like white label it in a sense, and it's membership services, but it would be like, castaways.club/members or whatever, and then people, your whole design and look and feel stays on your site, but you can still have like access only to certain, let's say, blog posts or certain. We could set up a discourse forum is probably what I'll end up using, and even tying into things like Discord or whatever too for live chat or whatever, where you can. And both of those, all the tech side of it, like how those things all connect and what they allow you to do, those both work equally well. But it's kind of just the idea of like, is it a Patreon thing, which would make it easy to set up quickly, versus like a Memberful thing, or replace that with whatever, some sort of membership software. But where it's handled on its own, it's a separate thing that's not tied to a service like Patreon. And trying to weigh whether the familiarity of Patreon, which is very familiar to me, but isn't to everybody, and so is that sort of an extra burden to have to set up a Patreon account versus setting up a Castaways account, let's say, or whatever, with Memberful, and sort of balancing those two. Does that make sense? And thoughts?
Yeah. So I think here I'm gonna quote a really thoughtful movie that just says, "I want to be where the people are. I want to." And then it goes on, obviously,
right,
to more thoughtful things where Ariel wants to be. But the point is, like, I think Patreon might be a good solution for this because podcasters are already on there, and actually kind of going a little bit further back to the Gumroad thing. Unless Gumroad can do like recurring payments, which I don't think they can do necessarily. It's sort of like a one-time, buy it.
Right.
Patreon sounds like a great way to just sort of piggyback off of what podcasters or what people in this digital space are doing already. And as a creator, I think they offer you enough tools to sort of do stuff, because you won't use all of the tools that are in that suite of things. Probably not the live stream thing. Maybe it'll be more about the group, the forum. And if you just say like, hey, I'm only doing memberships through Patreon, everything else is going to be through this discourse or Discord, room, and I'll give you access. To me, that sounds like a better way to handle it, like sort of separating the membership acceptance thing and the place where people interact with each other, like separating those two things, because
right,
you'll want to, as the thing either grows or changes or becomes like, I don't know. I'm trying to, like, a good example, I think, is how we are managing our moderators and stuff like that over in the Untapped app. We used to be on the Google Forums stuff, and you would get an email every single time somebody posted something in there, and then it became just sort of untenable on like the number of back and forth emails and stuff. So moved over to a Slack channel out of necessity. So I think like that kind of thing should be the way that you sort of approach it with people who are familiar with the digital space, digital world, podcasting, etc. Because they're likely to just kind of jump on whatever, be it Slack or Discord or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where it is. Talking through it with you is helping me, because it does make me remember that a lot of these folks, it's not like asking folks, like with my personal Patreon and even with the Good Stuff one, where it's like people, let's say, use my dad or use someone who's like a podcast listener, but you can be a podcast listener and not be super in love with tech, right? And so a Patreon thing is like, what is this? If I had just like a donate now button on Good Stuff, let's say, and it was just like a PayPal thing, maybe that would be like, or a Stripe thing, they could understand that, and there's no account set up. It's just like, I'm giving them money because I like what they do or whatever. That would be easy, I think, on the donation side. But yeah, I think speaking to podcasters who are used to the idea anyways, probably at this point especially, of like, courses and memberships and things like that they're trying to do. And this is kind of trying to be not those things, I guess. And so But I also like the idea of Patreon being able to, if at some point the community grows to the point where it's like people would want to support podcasting, but don't necessarily need to be involved with the community, like with Castaways, let's say on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis. Even it's just like, hey, I love the idea of more podcasters getting what they want or getting help doing what they want to do. And here's $1 a month. I'm just going to pledge support to this thing to help it keep going so that I get more podcasts in the end. That's kind of neat too, I guess. And my goal would be eventually maybe having like a podcast for Castaways itself that would.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Have you thought about like either, I don't know, some sort of like, hey, this is we're you not to say that the folks in there are going to be treated like interns, but it's like, hey, whatever you make, it will go out in this thing and people will listen to it. It'll be out in this feed. It'll be just this, wild experimental feed where a whole bunch of stuff gets posted. One a day, one every other day, once a week. It might be a cool just discovery tool for new voices or I don't know, interesting stuff that kind of bubbles up more conversation than just here's a show, it's the same thing every week.
Yeah.
Not to say that that's exactly what we're doing right now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's, I think, certainly like either like a similar, like a, I feel like somehow, just like comics or whatever would have like the small stage where they try out new jokes or whatever, like some, that kind of idea, auditions in a sense, but like more like, hey, we're community folks, and it's okay if one thing, your idea falls on its face and doesn't go off very well, and but we're just kind of trying stuff, and there's an element of like, it's fun to do stuff in that community where you just upload an MP3 to like Discourse or whatever, and everybody listens to it, gives feedback. But then there's the next level of like, okay, now we're going to put that in the world somewhere. You don't have to set up a whole site and podcast around that idea, but we're just going to try whatever your show, a game show idea or whatever the thing is in this experimental stream. And we've sort of
a little bit more like an open mic night sort of situation, right? But you got to pay a little entrance fee to
get on stage,
to kind of like bounce things off and be up on stage. Yeah.
Because we've talked about, I know at Good Stuff, we've even sort of over the years, like it'd be kind of fun to have like a trial or a beta test or whatever kind of show that would just allow for people to be creative. But like that was kind of wide open to anybody. And obviously nobody's really going to commit when it's wide open to everybody. But like, having it based around this community of people who are podcasters already. And so we'll see. I mean, the show or the site was, it was around the membership, of the email list was around 15 to 20, somewhere in there. And then once I named it and had the domain name, then I know like Justin Jackson, friend of the show, shared it in he has like it's more for, he calls it Mega Maker Club. It's kind of what I'm basing this around, this idea, but it's for people who like are programmers and create software as a service apps and things like that, and try to get people to buy into their thing. And so this is kind of like that, but for podcasters. And he shared this thing within his community, that community, and I saw a bump of, I don't know, 10 or so more people who signed up for the mailing list. So it's kind of like, okay, there's people who are signing up, interested enough to pass off their email list. I'd like to just take it to the next level now, and that's what this email is going to be like. But what's been fun, and maybe also is kind of why it's been working for me too, is that it, like we started at the very beginning of the show talking about, I'm not doing it alone. I'm very much doing it in a neurotic, like, help me decide what to do next kind of way, which appeals to the creative types, I think, and being involved, having a bit of a voice in it, not just like a dictatorship or whatever. But also that frees me up to be like, hey, you guys helped pick this name, so it's not just me that picked Castaways or whatever.
Right. Yeah. No, I think knowing also that someone will be there right when you join. Oh yeah, I know. I have a cat here wanting to go outside. Right when you join, now she's walking on the keyboard. Please don't hang up the call. Knowing that someone is there when you join is what I'm saying. You can edit all this out. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Hello.
People come for the cats.
Hello. At least say hello. Come on. There we go.
There we go. Just got to add a cat's marker.
Yeah. Knowing someone is there when you join, I think, is the biggest thing. Whether it's going to be the other people that are taking, quote unquote, taking the course or being a part of the community, or whether it's going to be the people who are sort of leading it. Is your intent to like have some sort of guided experience, where it's like, hey, if you've never podcasted before, this is where we start. Because I think like who this thing is for might be the biggest question mark for me. Is it folks who have podcasted before? Is it me? Like, is it actually me where I'm like, I don't have a podcast home. I need somewhere to like plant my feet and put up my tent and do what I love doing. I think nothing else is kind of pulling me in that direction right now.
Like where I'm scared, I don't want it to go to is like there's 1,000,001 how to podcast courses and YouTube channels and et cetera. So I'm not trying to replicate that with this, but it also, so it's not necessarily for the beginner who's never podcasted before, but those folks would certainly be welcome. And I envision the community that would love to help those kind of folks along, like not obviously holding their hand every step of the way, but like, hey, here's a video by Pat Flynn on like the thing you're asking. This is a great resource I used for that, or like Chris did this video on his Lemon Productions YouTube channel or whatever. Like check that one out. But like there wouldn't necessarily be, at least initially, anyways, a guided course to how to do stuff. It's more like we're in this because we all are trying at various levels of podcasting. We're interested in helping other folks out a bit, but also getting help a bit. And maybe some folks would be lurking just to be able to see what what's involved, what's behind the curtain, I guess, of making a podcast a bit. And so I do envision a bit of like monthly hangouts, maybe if there's enough people to warrant doing that, like monthly video hangouts on a topic and helping answer questions, common questions that come up, and publishing videos that relate to that and sort of helping some of those folks. And I think eventually some of those kind of things would come out of this community. And maybe to the point where, like enough people are like all clamoring for stuff and don't want to buy a big course, but want to be able to like say, okay, this, what's it called in a class when you have a group? What's the word? Like this, like a group of students that are going to go through the next 3 months together. Anyways, quorum. So,
I understand
the word
what you're saying.
Anyways, but like, we're going to start a thing where it's like, okay, September to December, anybody who's like brand new, Chris and so are going to walk with you through this thing. And at the end, hopefully we have some podcasts and you can run off and do your thing, but it's not like
that would be my other question, actually. So there is sort of like your entry point. And I think once you sort of decide like, who is this for? If it's for folks who have podcasted before, like at what point would they want to enter this sort of group of folks? Is it because they're like feeling stagnant? Is it because they want a challenge? Is it because they're looking for a partnership with another podcaster to like, I don't know, be paired up and like try something new? What do they want to get out of this? And then the last part of that for me would be like, how do they get out? Is it like, does it feel like you just have to not participate for 2 months and then you're like, well, I guess I'll just stop. I'll cancel this thing because I'm not doing it anymore. Or is it kind of like, I went through this quote unquote course. I did 8 weeks of challenges on Chris Cassaway's, and now like, do I?
You get voted off the island.
Done. Like I'm like out. You know what I mean? Like I feel I got voted off the island.
And that's where looking. That's where again, like basing it around Justin Jackson's thing, I've sort of watched a bit of what he's been doing, and it kind of like people do eventually outgrow it, right? Because they like one of the guys, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like either producthunt.com or something similar to that scale, like sort of came out of that thing where it was like an idea for a thing, and then he eventually launched it. And obviously at some point he's too big, busy, whatever, to like still be a part of this community, and he doesn't need it anymore because he has a team of employees or whatever. And so there would be a point where like you outgrow it maybe, or you don't have the time to devote to it the way you used to. But I would envision that it'd be kind of like an ongoing resource, that whatever the lifespan might be, it might be a year or two, that you'd be sort of like in the community, giving back but also getting from it. And then either you drop off podcasting because it's not your thing anymore, just like I think anything else where like you join a golf membership or you join a tennis club, or I don't know, like that idea of like, this is a thing I want to try for a while. I need some help keeping myself accountable because it is can be a very lonely venture. And I think all of the things you listed would be great, like finding other I envision sort of a forum post or whatever it is category of like looking for a podcaster to try out This thing's.
Yeah, it's the misconnections
Yeah.
of the podcast.
Hopefully not like Tinder for podcasters where it's just like swipe left, swipe right, like, however that works. But
you want to talk about tech?
yeah, swipe left or right. I don't know, whatever the way it goes.
I actually, to tell you the truth, I don't know which way you swipe.
No,
that's just because I have no idea.
Yeah. Swipe away is all I know. But so that, yeah, all of those things I think you listed are great reasons why I think someone would join. And I'm hope I'm not being naive or what's the word, like not focused enough, I guess, on a particular niche in there, because I tend to be
letting
like
it kind of grow in its own way. I think that's important too. Like, so
Yeah.
long as you are reactive to what people are looking for, and you're like, oh man, okay, so I put this thing together, but it's mostly folks who don't know about the technical side, like
right,
they
like mic technique or something or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think I hope that it'll kind of just present itself and you can sort of formulate it as it's going along.
Yeah,
but
that's
one of the. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the one thing I know I don't want, like I said, sort of the courses thing, is also like I want to leave the whole like how to get rich or be profitable podcasting. That's like, because there's things you can do. There's tons you can, like, ways you can have a plan and try to like make yourself profitable. But there's so much random, stuff that can happen or that works for you or against you on your way to that it's just not interesting to me. And there's plenty. Again, that is a well covered ground on the internet in whatever angle or metric or niche you're in.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like inspiration porn, which I think is the worst offender on these courses and websites, and just like putting content out to put content out on Instagram. It just kills me to see that kind of stuff, and people eat it up.
I know, that's the.
Are you joking? They didn't do anything. Like, this is, it just drives me wild.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a much more deeply seated issue.
Yeah.
Than just creating a community. But as long as it doesn't turn into that, man, you got my support.
Yeah. Well, thanks, and this is great. I wanted to do, actually, I was tempted to, like, this is again where, like, putting the cart before the horse. I was like tempted, like, okay, I'm going to start the podcast now because I want to talk. I like the idea of talking through some of this stuff and then writing it out in an email to the community and sort of working that way, rather than like writing an email and sort of fleshing it out that way, but not actually, just percolating in my brain a little bit longer and before I put it on.
Well, I actually
print.
think it would be really important too to like start it at the new year, because this is the I think this is the time where, like, me, yes, like I'm sort of like transitioning out of doing a weekly / monthly podcast that used to take up the last 4.5 years of my life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I feel kind of refreshed. I'm ready for something new. Like, the holidays are over. The next like 5 months for me are just about doing work and trying to figure out what I want to do with podcasting. And the beginning of the year is kind of like that. Yeah, that's the spark. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So I, not to like put a fire underneath you on this, which I know you don't need. The beginning of the year is like, I think that would be a great time to just, let's just start. Like, week one, you all you set up is like the schedule for week 1 and week 2, and that's it. And then we just go from there. On what did you guys think of week 1? How should I change week 3?
Right. Yeah. All right. So I got to end the podcast so I have time to get this all done.
Actually, as sort of an analogous kind of thing, and maybe this might be insightful, maybe it won't, but there is a course, a website called 3d4designers.com. It is put on by, I've never said her name out loud, but I'll say Devon Co. She used to work at Dropbox, and now she does design work for a living in 3D mostly. And so it's all through Cinema 4D, which is this 3D tool that I, back in 2011, I started watching this guy called Grayscale Gorilla and learning a whole lot about it. Right, tutorials up the wazoo, just trying to make stuff.
Yeah.
And it eventually became my job to do this 3D work. I've been out of it for 3 years now, 4 years. I think back in 2014, I just sort of stopped. I moved into software and started in 2013 maybe. So it was a good 2 years that I had under my belt. I learned a lot, but it very much interested me because I felt like I was learning a lot of stuff. It was a different world than the like two-dimensional design that I was doing. It was really fun to like learn things and have it work when it came to physics and stuff. So I found this website, and I've been following Devin, I think, for a while. And she put this out, and it's a course, 3D for designers, but it is an intro to Cinema 4D, the application for designers. And I'm reluctant to join it and to pay the money because it is a pretty big chunk of money for this sort of like, she guides you through the, you know, shapes and lighting and color and animation. But it's a beginner-friendly 3D fundamentals course. So as much as I've like been out of the game, I don't need the fundamentals. Maybe I do need the fundamentals, but I don't think the fundamentals are worth the cost of this. Like it wouldn't push me towards like learning more than I had known back in 2012. So there are courses like this where I'm like, yeah, I was kind of in the world for a little while and I want to know more. And the course that you made looks so cool and so interesting. And there are other people, like kind of like what you're talking about. There's other people doing these same things and putting their own twist on these tutorials and courses, these parts of the introduction that are different from each other. You know, you kind of put your own spin on it.
Yeah.
But I can't justify this because it's not an intro for me. Like I already know this stuff. And now I'm like, well, I'm still back and forth every single time she opens up the wait list for it. I'm like, should I do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? I don't need an intro. Like I'm waiting for the like, what's the next step? Because once people get out of this course, they can't buy it again, right? They can't buy the intro to Cinema 4D, you know, #2 course from Devin. They have to just sort of like, I guess I'll figure it out on my own now. So I don't know, like having something to go to for podcasting, like I feel like I'm in that same area where it's like I've done it before, but I'm looking for like the next challenge. You know, I'm looking for, I don't need the course, the tutorialized stuff about podcasting. I want the let me put my own spin on this stuff. Let me get feedback from other people. Let me sort of, it's like Dribble, right? Dribble for podcasters almost, where we can like play off each other. We can I don't know, post little snippets, easily digestible. It's not an hour-long interview that you're listening to. It's just sort of like, let's try out this stuff and let's experiment and show some work in progress stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I just wanted to put that out there because that was something that I have been thinking about for a really long time, and as a like being a part of a community at one point a couple of years ago, and then just totally falling off, and then wanting to kind of get back into it. I don't feel like there's an entry for me now. I feel like the ramp to get back into 3D is so steep that I probably won't ever do it ever again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and so we'll see. That's where, I don't know where it's going to go, where it's going to lead exactly. And I worry sometimes if I don't have enough of a business sense around it, it's just going to flail and falter. Because obviously, at some point in the day, I have to be able to justify the time spent on the community, right? And for other folks, and sort of the tech and managing it and all that kind of stuff, and obviously community development as far as like not allowing douchebags to like take over stuff and things like that. All that comes along with this, where if they've paid money, then they're allowed to be in, but then they're not allowed to just, spew a bunch of Nazi propaganda or whatever at us.
Right. Or,
and all that kind of stuff.
Disparaging to how other people are trying things, or say like, your audio quality sucks, I can't even listen to this, or whatever.
Yeah, dealing with like harsh, like stuff you see on Twitter where it's just like, oh, I can't even listen to this person on the podcast or whatever. And balancing those, the hardcore opinionated folks with, hey, we're just having fun with this and trying to learn and better each other. If you want,
constructive, man. Don't be so. Don't harsh their vibe.
Exactly. So if you're interested, if you've listened and watched this far, And you're interested, castaways.club is where you can go and you can sign up for the mailing list. That's sort of the first point of entry. And then we'll see where we go from there. I guess you'll get the next email that I send out hopefully here. And if you'd like to be on this show, and wrapping up here, if you'd like to be on the show, you can go to goodstuff.fm/SMYM/ask, and there's a form there to fill out if you want to be on the show, and also instructions on how to send in questions for the show and for future episodes. So I've had folks recently, Andrew Clues, other folks have been on, interviewed them about their podcast. That's kind of one angle of this show. And then obviously, as you've just heard, every so often, Kyle and I will just get on and chat about podcasting and the business and fun of it.
I derail the whole operation.
Yeah. Well, you bring your cats. That's about it.
That is true. I do bring the cats.
You can listen to more of Kyle if you want. Podcast.untapped.com over his day job.
That's the only, Chris, that's the only show I have.
Oh, no. Well, you have this show. You're a reoccurring guest, I guess we'll call you, or co-host. I don't know what the official terminology is.
Well, to be honest, I think you and I have a lot of room that we could, we'll take this offline, but we have a lot of room where we could either bring other shows back that aren't posting anymore. We could start something new that is just good stuff oriented. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff. Maybe I need to join this castaways.club and try some stuff out.
You get the special founders bonus of $10 a month instead of $5. That's the privilege of joining.
Wow, thank you.
I try to much. Yeah, I love all the if you join now, you get it for this much, and then if you join later, you get it for this much, and I'm going to close membership at blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm terrible at all that stuff because I just feel like it's digital. It doesn't cost. It's like, I know there's a reason. Cohorts. That's the word I'm looking for. Cohort. This cohort is going through this term. Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know there's good reasons to do all that stuff, like just like you're saying with 3D designer stuff, and I know Justin does too with his Mega Maker things. Like, it's closed right now, but get on the mailing list and we'll notify you when it's open. And like, it's good to keep it.
It creates anticipation.
Yeah.
But it also makes me feel terrible because if you lowered the cost of this course to half of what it is, I'd probably join it tomorrow.
Right.
If I could. So it's tough. It's such a balance.
I'm iChris on Twitter. He's your hot burps these days. Good Stuff FM is the Twitter.
I'm off it, man. I'm so over Twitter. I finally, so getting back to iOS, I've pulled up my Reader account to pull up my Feedly thing, and so I'm back on RSS.
Nice.
It feels wonderful. Feedbin may be the way to kind of bridge the two between the Twitterverse and the RSS world. But anyway, yeah, you can find me there for now.
And SMYM_FM is the Show Me Your Mic Twitter handle. And we live stream this show and other shows, not a bunch, but a few every so often.
Coming back in 2019, probably, maybe, except we're not doing morning show anymore. But my internet will be better, and I will be a face and not just a bunch of
photos of Kyle. So twitch.tv/goodstuff_FM is where you can follow along. If you do the Twitch thing and you've got Amazon Prime, you can hit the little gift your sub thing and support Good Stuff with that. You can also support us. Patreon.com/goodstuff is the Patreon account for the network. You'll get behind the scenes footage from extra, whatever we're calling those things, after darks, what we used to call them back in the day, but extra bonus recordings that don't make it on the actual show, and
Relay
access to
them B-sides, I think.
Oh, that's B-sides is another way. Yeah. And then access to the Discord that we have for listeners and supporters, live chat there, and also our Minecraft server. We just moved it over to a new host, so it's got up to 25 folks can get on there now, and at a time, like at a single time. And so if you're into Minecraft or want to get back into it, there's a great little community of listeners and folks playing Minecraft there, which is lots of fun. Right. That's it for this episode. Thanks, Kyle. We'll talk to you again next time. I think probably this is the last one before. Yeah, this is definitely the last one before 2019. So we'll see you in 2019. Hope you have a great holiday and a happy new year. Bye.